David Prescott, a relatively unknown human diplomat, found himself standing awkwardly before the Grand Assembly of the Galactic Council, feeling dwarfed by the sheer magnitude of the event unfolding around him. The chamber, an architectural marvel of swirling holograms and alien grandeur, was filled with representatives from 100 different worlds, creatures of every shape, size, and species, all of them present to witness the reading of King Xylox IV's will. The late king was one of the galaxy's most powerful figures, known not only for his vast empire but also for his unmatched cunning and strategic brilliance. This was no ordinary occasion, it was a moment that could shift the very balance of galactic power. David, a human, a species often underestimated and mocked by the wider galaxy, had no idea why he was even here. He had never been part of any royal dealings, and the idea of being mentioned in the will of one of the most important rulers in the universe felt almost laughable. Yet here he was, standing at the center of the grand dais, all eyes on him, waiting to hear what role he would play in this unexpected drama. As the holographic projection of the late King Xylox materialized in the air before them, a wave of anticipation rippled through the room. The king's regal voice echoed through the chamber as the details of his will were revealed, each word more shocking than the last. Kingdoms were divided, riches were allocated, but it was the final bequest that caused the entire room to still. And to David Prescott of Earth, the hologram declared, "I bequeath my most precious daughter, Princess Velra, to be his wife." There was a moment of stunned silence, followed immediately by an explosion of laughter. The aliens in the chamber, some of whom barely acknowledged the existence of humans, found this to be the ultimate punchline. To them, it was beyond absurd David wasn't being given any of the king's treasures or the command of mighty fleets. No, he was being gifted Princess Velra, the most infamous figure in the galaxy, not for her power or wisdom, but for her grotesque appearance. Velra was legendary, but not in the way most royalty were. She was the subject of cruel jokes across the cosmos, known for her grotesque and unusual features that defied any known standard of beauty, even among her own people. Her skin was covered in a patchwork of scales and rough, uneven textures. Her eyes were unnervingly large and bulging, while her tusks protruded at odd angles from her face. To most, she was an object of pity at best and revulsion at worst. Even her own court had never embraced her, and her very presence at state events often caused awkward silence or thinly veiled disgust. And now here was a human barely considered worthy of attention being given Velra's hand in marriage as part of King Xylox's final decree. The mockery was palpable. Alien dignitaries from far-off worlds sneered and made crude jokes in their native tongues. Some whispered loudly enough for David to hear, calling him a fool, a pawn in some grand cosmic joke. He could feel their condescending eyes on him, scrutinizing his every move. But while the room was alive with derisive laughter, David remained still, his face betraying nothing. On the surface, it seemed like he had been humiliated on a galactic scale, but deep down, something gnawed at him, a gut feeling he couldn't shake. This wasn't a joke. King Xylox wasn't known for frivolity. He was a man who always moved with purpose, a master strategist who saw possibilities and connections where others saw only chaos. Why would he, of all beings, link his legacy to someone as unimportant as a human and a daughter so reviled by the galaxy? David's mind raced, piecing together fragments of memories and observations. He had met Xylox only once, during a minor diplomatic mission that hardly seemed significant at the time. But he remembered the sharpness in the king's eyes, the way Xylox had spoken to him briefly, but with an odd sense of recognition. It wasn't a casual encounter. Xylox had seen something in him that others hadn't. And now, with the eyes of the galaxy watching, David suspected that the king's final move was more calculated than anyone realized. This was not a joke. It was a puzzle, a test, a move in a game far more complex than anyone in the room could comprehend. The princess's hidden power and secret legacy. Beneath the laughter and the cruel jokes, Princess Velura harbored a secret that few in the galaxy knew. While the universe mocked her for her grotesque appearance, King Xylox had always treated her with a peculiar reverence. The truth was that Velura wasn't merely the unfortunate daughter of a great king, she was far more than the sum of her outward appearance. Buried beneath her misunderstood exterior lay a power that could change the course of galactic history, a power that King Xylox had fiercely protected throughout his life, keeping it hidden from even his most trusted advisors. Velura had been born with a rare and unique ability, one that transcended the physical realm. From a young age, she could hear whispers in the universe, faint echoes from beings older than time itself, the primordials. These ancient entities were legends in every known culture, said to have existed before the first stars lit the cosmos. Some called them gods, others saw them as architects of reality. For eons, their presence had only been a myth, as no known civilization had ever encountered them directly. The primordials were believed to have long since vanished, leaving only their vast, unknowable influence on the galaxy. Yet, Velura could commune with them. From childhood, Velura had heard their voices, felt their presence in the fabric of the universe. The primordials spoke to her in cryptic riddles, revealing fragments of ancient knowledge that had been lost to time. Their power wasn't something that could be wielded by mere mortals, but through Velura, a conduit of sorts, their wisdom and influence could be felt. It was a connection that not even King Xylox fully understood, but he knew one thing for certain: Velura was not a cursed, misshapen daughter, but rather a bridge to something far greater. Her ability to communicate with these timeless beings made her invaluable, not just to him, but to anyone who sought to reshape the galaxy. Yet King Xylox had kept this a closely guarded secret. He knew that revealing Velura's gift to the galaxy would put her at immense risk. Every power-hungry faction, every empire and coalition would descend upon her, seeking to exploit her connection to the primordials for their own ends. She would become a pawn in a galactic game far more dangerous than anything the Council could imagine. So, he allowed the rumors of her physical appearance to spread unchecked. He let the galaxy believe she was a burden, an embarrassment, someone unworthy of attention or power. It was the perfect cover. Velura herself had lived her life in isolation, aware of the cruel whispers, the snickering glances, and the pitying stares. Her heart had grown heavy under the weight of her disfigurement, but she had also grown wise. She knew that her appearance was a shield, a way for her father to protect her from the outside world, even as it pained her to live in the shadows. Over the years, she had come to accept her role as a hidden treasure, a secret weapon that no one saw coming. But now, with her father gone, everything had changed. The moment the will was read, and David Prescott was named her betrothed, Velura knew that her father's plan was set in motion. David, the seemingly unremarkable human, was part of her father's intricate scheme. King Xylox had seen something in David, something others had missed. The king had been a master at identifying hidden potential, at recognizing when someone was more than they appeared. And now that insight had manifested in his final move, entrusting his daughter and the secrets of the primordials to a human that the galaxy barely noticed. The Council's laughter didn't surprise Velura. She had grown used to it. They mocked her now, just as they had her entire life. But she knew, as did David, that they were blind to the truth. They only saw the surface, the grotesque features, the unworthy suitor. What they failed to see was the power simmering beneath the surface, the vast potential waiting to be unleashed. They had no idea that the one they ridiculed as the ugly princess held the key to the ancient forces that governed the very stars above their heads. Velura's ability to commune with the primordials gave her insight into the workings of the universe that few could even begin to comprehend. She understood the delicate balance between time and space, the hidden currents of energy that flowed through the galaxy. The primordials had shown her visions of the future, glimpses of possible outcomes that could shape the destiny of entire civilizations. And with David by her side, she sensed that her father had chosen wisely. He wasn't a galactic hero, not yet, but there was something about him, a resilience, a quiet strength that reminded her of her father. Perhaps that was why Xylox had chosen David to be her partner, her protector. As the laughter of the council echoed in her ears, Velra remained calm. She knew that the galaxy saw her as a curse, but the truth was far more dangerous. The primordials had whispered to her just days before, as her father lay dying, warning her of the chaos to come. The galaxy was on the brink of upheaval, and her connection to these ancient beings would be the key to surviving the coming storm. Now, with David by her side, Velra was ready to reveal her true power, to step out of the shadows and into the light. She wasn't just the ugly daughter of a king, she was the heir to a force greater than any empire, and soon, the galaxy would come to understand the true meaning of power. An unlikely alliance in defiance of expectations. As the galaxy's most powerful figures mocked David for inheriting Princess Velra, a sense of determination began to grow within him. He had lived his entire life as an outsider in the vast interstellar community, often disregarded as a mere human and inferior species in the eyes of most galactic powers. The aliens who filled the Galactic Council were all far more advanced in technology, biology, and military might. To them, Earth was nothing more than a backwater planet, and humans were little more than a curiosity, too weak and too primitive to play any significant role on the galactic stage. But David was different. He had risen through the ranks of interstellar diplomacy not by force or power, but by understanding the subtleties of galactic politics. He had learned to read people, or in this case, beings better than anyone else. While many humans struggled to grasp the complexities of dealing with hundreds of alien species, David had mastered the art of navigating their politics, reading between the lines, and understanding the nuances of their cultures. His success wasn't built on brute strength, but on a sharp mind and a willingness to embrace the unexpected. So as the council's laughter rang out, David remained silent, letting the weight of their mockery settle around him. He didn't flinch. He didn't scowl. He didn't react the way they expected, and that was the first clue that he was not what they thought him to be. Instead of crumbling under the pressure of their ridicule, David stood tall. His mind was already working, already seeing the potential in this arrangement that the council, in their arrogance, had missed entirely. Princess Velra, who had been a figure of pity and derision her whole life, watched David closely. She had been expecting rejection or humiliation, another in a long series of disappointments. But instead, this human, the one being who had every reason to walk away, stood firm. He didn't turn his back on her. He didn't scoff or cringe. He accepted the inheritance with a quiet dignity that startled her. For the first time in her life, Velra saw something she had never expected to find in another person: respect. And not just respect, but understanding. David wasn't judging her by her outward appearance, he was seeing something deeper, something that everyone else in the galaxy had overlooked. In that moment, an unlikely alliance was formed. David, the human diplomat, and Velra, the ridiculed princess, were bound together by more than just the will of King Xylox. They shared a common experience: both had spent their lives underestimated, cast aside, and mocked by the galaxy at large. They were both outsiders in their own way, seen as weak or insignificant by those who wielded power. But where others saw weakness, David saw strength. He understood that Velra's outward appearance was a mask, one that had shielded her true potential from the world. David's sharp diplomatic instincts told him that there was more to Velra than anyone realized. He hadn't yet uncovered the full truth about her connection to the primordials, but he knew that King Xylox had chosen him for a reason. There was power here hidden, waiting to be unleashed. Velra wasn't just a political pawn or a grotesque figure to be pitied. She was something far more important, and David was determined to find out exactly what that was. As they left the council chamber together, David and Velra walked side by side, the eyes of the galaxy still upon them, but their bond was already forming. In Velra, David saw a mirror of himself, a being who had been overlooked and undervalued, but who carried within her the potential to change everything. He didn't see her as a burden or a curse. He saw her as an ally, one who had lived through ridicule and isolation but had emerged stronger for it. Velra, for her part, was cautious. She had spent her entire life being rejected and mocked by those around her, even her own people. But there was something different about David. He didn't shy away from her, didn't treat her like a joke. His steady gaze, his calm demeanor, and the way he spoke to her without pity or condescension, it was unlike anything she had ever experienced. For the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope that someone could see past the outer shell that had defined her existence. As they began to talk, Velra realized that David was more than just a diplomat. His insight into the workings of the galaxy, his ability to navigate complex political landscapes, and his refusal to be cowed by the arrogance of the council made him the perfect partner. He wasn't a warrior, but his mind was a weapon sharper than any blade, and Velra had the sense that, together, they could accomplish what neither could alone. Velra had spent years hiding her true abilities, shielding herself from the cruel gaze of the galaxy. But with David by her side, she began to feel that maybe, just maybe, it was time to step out of the shadows. She could feel the strength in him, a quiet resolve that matched her own. They were both survivors, both underestimated by a galaxy that couldn't see their potential, and now they had been thrust together by the will of a king who had seen something that no one else had. The galaxy, in its arrogance, had expected David to reject Velra, to abandon her and let the laughter continue. But they hadn't accounted for the resilience of a human spirit, nor the hidden strength of a princess who had been shaped by a lifetime of scorn. As the council continued to whisper and snicker behind their backs, neither David nor Velra cared. Their minds were already moving ahead, strategizing, planning, and preparing for the challenges to come. What the council had dismissed as a joke, David saw as an opportunity. He wasn't playing by their rules, he was creating new ones. And with Velra by his side, they were about to redefine what power looked like in the galaxy. They were the ultimate underdogs, unseen, unnoticed, and underestimated. But that, David realized, was their greatest strength. The galaxy didn't see them coming, and that was exactly how they wanted it. Revenge and the galactic power shift. As the days turned into weeks, David and Velra's unlikely alliance began to take shape, and the true depth of King Xylox's final move started to reveal itself. While the Galactic Council continued to mock the human and his ugly pride, whispers began to spread through the galaxy about the strange and unanticipated developments surrounding the new couple. The council, smug in their arrogance, believed that they had witnessed nothing more than a cosmic farce, the powerful king's ultimate prank. What they didn't realize, however, was that the laughter and mockery would soon turn to fear and desperation. David, with his diplomatic finesse and tactical brilliance, wasted no time in leveraging the situation to his advantage. He recognized that while the galaxy viewed Velra as an object of ridicule, her connection to the ancient primordials was the most valuable asset he could possess. The council, blind to anything beyond appearances, had missed the significance of the power she held, but David had not. He and Velra began working in the shadows, laying the groundwork for a shift in galactic power that would ripple through every corner of the universe. Velra, emboldened by David's unwavering support, slowly began to reveal more of her abilities. Her connection to the primordials was not just an abstract talent, it was a source of knowledge and power that no one in the galaxy could comprehend. The ancient beings spoke to her in cryptic visions, revealing lost secrets of technology, energy manipulation, and the deep, hidden laws that govern the universe itself. These were not things that could be found in any database or learned through study. This was primordial wisdom, passed down through eons, whispered into the mind of a being who had been ridiculed for her entire life. David quickly realized that Velra's abilities could be the key to reshaping not just the political landscape of the galaxy, but as the days turned into weeks, David and Velra's unlikely alliance began to evolve into something far more formidable than anyone had anticipated. While the Galactic Council continued to laugh behind their backs, Believing David had inherited nothing more than a cosmic joke, a storm was brewing that would soon shake the very foundations of galactic power. The Council, content in their arrogance, could not have foreseen the whirlwind that David and Velra were about to unleash. David, with his sharp intellect and deep understanding of interstellar politics, wasted no time in consolidating his position. He knew that the Galactic Council saw him as a weak player, a human barely worthy of attention, but he had no intention of playing by their rules. Velra's connection to the ancient primordials, the godlike beings who whispered to her from the depths of time, was the trump card no one saw coming. The Council, blinded by their own hubris, had overlooked the most powerful force in the universe simply because it came in a form they found repulsive. Velra, who had lived her entire life in the shadows of mockery and rejection, now stood with a new sense of purpose. Her connection to the primordials was far more profound than even her father had understood. These ancient beings didn't merely whisper forgotten secrets of the universe to her, they granted her insights into the very fabric of reality. Through Velra, the primordials revealed the lost knowledge of technologies so advanced they bordered on magic, energy manipulation that defied the laws of physics, and hidden truths about the origins of the galaxy itself. These were not things that could be learned through study or deciphered by any of the advanced races that made up the Galactic Council. This was the essence of creation, passed down through eons, now flowing into the mind of a princess the galaxy had dismissed as a grotesque joke. David quickly realized that Velra's connection to the primordials could be the key to shifting the balance of power in the galaxy. The Council, for all its posturing and strength, was blind to the true forces that governed the universe. They wielded armies and fleets, but David and Velra had something far more powerful: the ability to rewrite the rules of reality itself. But they knew they couldn't act too quickly. The Galactic Council was vast, with representatives from hundreds of species and empires, each with their own agendas and schemes. If they revealed their hand too soon, they would be overwhelmed by the combined might of the galaxy's most powerful factions. Instead, David and Velra worked in the shadows, gathering allies from the fringes of the galaxy, those who had been overlooked, forgotten, or betrayed by the ruling powers. These were the outcasts, the scavengers, the remnants of fallen empires, and the disenfranchised. They had no love for the Galactic Council, and they were eager for change. Slowly, the whispers began. Rumors spread of a human diplomat and his strange, otherworldly bride who were amassing power in the outer systems. There were stories of forgotten technologies being rediscovered, of mysterious energy sources being harnessed, and of entire fleets disappearing without a trace. The Council dismissed these rumors at first, seeing them as nothing more than the wild tales of a fractured galaxy. But as more and more reports came in, they began to realize that something far more dangerous was happening beneath the surface. The turning point came when one of the Council's most powerful members, the Thenorians, a race known for their technological superiority and military might, suffered a catastrophic defeat. A fleet of Thenorian warships, sent to suppress a rebellion on a distant colony, vanished without a trace. The Council was stunned. The Thenorian fleet was unmatched in its power, and yet it had been wiped out without a single distress signal or trace of its existence. The Council convened an emergency session. The vast chamber, with its towering pillars and swirling holograms, was filled with representatives from every corner of the galaxy. The air was thick with tension as they debated what could have caused such a disaster. Some argued that it was merely an accident, a malfunction of the Thenorian fleet's technology. Others whispered of something more sinister, an unknown force that was rising in the galaxy, one that the Council had underestimated for far too long. It was during this heated session that David and Velra made their move. They had remained quiet for weeks, allowing the Council to underestimate them, but now it was time to reveal just a glimpse of the power they held. Through the shadows, they had gathered enough strength to make their presence felt, and the Council's arrogance would be their downfall. David, calm and composed, walked into the Council chamber, Velra by his side. The laughter and mockery had long since died down, replaced by a quiet unease. The council members stared at them, their sneers tempered with uncertainty. They still saw Velra as the grotesque princess, but there was something different about her now, an aura of power that hadn't been there before. The council members. David began, his voice steady and measured. You have ruled this galaxy for centuries, believing that your power was absolute, but you have been blind to the forces that truly shape the universe. You have dismissed us, mocked us, and ignored the warnings that have been whispered in the darkness. There was a murmur of discontent among the council members, but none dared to interrupt him. You believed the primordials were nothing more than myths, David continued, but they are real, and they have returned. At that moment, Velra raised her hand, and the chamber was filled with a sudden, palpable energy. The lights flickered, and the very air seemed to hum with an otherworldly force. For a brief moment, the council members felt it, a presence far greater than anything they had ever known. It was as if the universe itself had turned its gaze upon them, and they were nothing more than ants beneath its vast, cosmic gaze. The whispers of the primordials, once known only to Velra, now echoed through the minds of every council member. They felt the weight of the ancient being's power, the unimaginable force that had shaped the stars and the planets. The council, for all its military might and technological supremacy, was nothing in the face of this primordial force. David and Velra had made their move. The galaxy's rulers, once so certain of their dominance, were beginning to realize the truth. Their mockery had blinded them to the real threat, and now, as they stood in the presence of a power older and far greater than their empires, they could feel the ground shifting beneath their feet. The laughter had stopped, and in its place, there was only silence.